Welcome to The Fight with Teddy Atlas, presented by Dynamic Striking. I'm Ken Rideout, joined as always by the voice of all combat sports, the legend Teddy Atlas. Teddy, how you doing?
Good. You're looking good, Ken. How's the training going for Tokyo Marathon? You look ready to go there, kid. You're moving around. What do you got? About 2 weeks, right? About 2 weeks to go?
Yeah, 13 days. I fly over on this coming Sunday, so 5 days from when the episode goes live. But you know what's funny is just like any training camp, right? You push yourself as hard as you can throughout training camp, and if you've done it all correctly, with about a week to go, you're right on that razor's edge of being injured or being as fit as you can possibly get, because to push your body to the limit to get it as fit as possible.
Yeah. You don't want to leave anything. So now I'm like we say, you don't want to leave it in the gym. You don't want to leave it on the road. I get it.
So, right as, of course, with a week to go, this happened to me before New York, too. I've got like little nagging injuries. I got a tight hamstring. Sometimes with a lot of distance running, you get like tight glute muscle. The glute muscle is so big, if it's not working perfectly, it starts recruiting hamstring and hip flexors. So my hamstring
I don't hear excuses coming. I don't hear.
No excuses.
Let's start again.
No excuses.
Let's start again.
I'm on the edge.
Let's start again. How you feel? You look great, champ. How you feeling, champ?
My fitness couldn't be better. Now I just got to rest and get right.
There it is.
My fitness is incredible.
There it is. Good.
You know, and a big part of that reason, Teddy, AG1 for all your health and wellness needs. athleticgreens.com/Atlas. Go take advantage of the special offer they have for our listeners. 10 free travel packs with your first purchase, and I'll be using those travel packs in Tokyo the whole time I'm there. This stuff has got 75 whole food source ingredients, so even if you're eating the healthiest diet, Athletic Greens will make sure you got all your vitamins, minerals, prebiotics, probiotics. It's got everything you need. No need for a multivitamin. Drink them all with Athletic Greens. 1 scoop in the morning with 10 ounces of water. Boom, you're done. You've got all your nutrients and minerals that you need. And Teddy, I know how much you appreciate a lot of nutriments.
Oh, yeah, listen, we all need them. The most important thing is the mind. But you know what?
That's right.
It helps the mind too. It helps the mind too. People forget that sometimes. They say, yeah, it helps the body. And they always hear Teddy talking about 75% of it's mental. You know, the strongest muscle we have, the most important muscle is our brain. But the proper nutriment, obviously, it helps the brain. So, yeah, I mean, you're helping yourself in every way you can with your diligent work, your mental attitude, the ethic that you have, but bringing what you have to bring into your body, the right things. So Athletic Greens is one of the many things that can really help you, and it's a good product. And while you're over there in Tokyo, I know we're going to talk about this a little bit more later on. We're going to preview the big fight coming from Vegas in the heavyweight fight with maybe the greatest UFC fight of all time, Jon Jones against Gane. It's going to be an unbelievable match. Just incredible. It's got so many elements to it. But just since we're talking real quick about Tokyo, while you're in Tokyo, I'm going to be in Vegas with the man, Charlie Monahan, the director of all things UFC and beyond. But UFC is one of his specialties. He's the best in the business. I'm going to be there in Vegas with him, Anthony Smith, all the great people that work with the UFC, with ESPN over there, and I'll be over there.
Yeah, if any of our fans who are going to be in Vegas, Teddy will be on the floor of the MGM Grand Casino, Resort and Casino from 1 p.m. Pacific, that's 1 p.m. local time in Vegas, till 5 p.m., recording segments for ESPN with the great Anthony Smith and a bunch of the other UFC personalities, like you said, with the legend Charlie Monahan, producer extraordinaire. So if you're in Vegas and you're around MGM between 1 and 5, stop by and see Teddy. Please don't interrupt if he's recording a segment, but in between segments, he'd love to see all the fans. Take some pictures.
And please don't say where's Ken. Please, because you already. Because everyone thinks I'm such a hard guy.
Ken?
But I'm sensitive. I'm sensitive too. I'm sensitive. A little bit.
If you ask him where's Ken, you're not getting a picture.
No,
but if you have a copy of Teddy's book, which you can get the audiobook on Audible, you get a signature and a picture. So check out Teddy's audiobook on Audible, order the hard copy on Amazon, and support the local legend. That'll be fun, though, Teddy. I wish I was going to be there. I would love to see that fight in person.
That would have been perfect to have you and Rob out there. I mean, we could have just to meet with our fan base there with all our great podcast, fans.
Subscribers.
We have 280,000 of them right now. And
if you're not a subscriber, expect Teddy to...
And then towards a million.
Expect Teddy to take you... Expect Teddy to grab your phone and make sure you're an actual subscriber if you want to take a picture. That's a prerequisite.
What I accurately do is I'll grab your phone and then I'll bring over Anthony Smith or one of the people who are technology, savvy, or Charlie Monahan or Joe Rogan or Mike Bisbane or anyone I can grab. I'll bring him over and say, hey, make sure he's subscribed, please, because, anything computer written or computer driven, I have a little bit of a problem with, but please get him up and running here on our podcast. But it's pretty easy. It's pretty easy, actually. Yep. I can even tell people, I tell them, listen, it's on all the iTunes platforms, but the easiest way that I can explain it is go on your phone, go on YouTube, and just put in The Fight with Teddy Atlas. It pops up, and then hit subscribe. And I stand there over their shoulder, making sure they hit subscribe. I said, no, you didn't hit subscribe.
I love it.
You didn't hit subscribe. You go, no, Teddy, you got to hit subscribe. And then they're released.
That's it. You know what I was thinking, though? For one, because you're working at the UFC event, one of the fights I'd actually love to go see in person, maybe we can figure out a way to do this, me, you, and Rob, is to go see the Ryan Garcia Tank Davis fight.
That would be
That'd
great.
Be a fun one to see.
We're going to have Ryan Garcia on before that fight.
That's right.
That would be great. Maybe we could work that out. That'd be great. And one of the reasons I'm more excited about going to Vegas, I get to see my son. And my grandson. So my son will be with me too when I'm there with my man Charlie and everybody. So it'll just be
Teddy's one of my Teddy Jr. Teddy Jr. is one of my favorite people to watch the fights with. We had a blast at the Poirier-Chandler fight up in the ESPN box, so I'll miss seeing him that time. But Ryan Garcia, if you're listening, when you come on, expect me to hit you up for tickets. I know Teddy won't, but I will. I'm not too proud to beg.
No, we're not going to ask for tickets.
Yes, I am. Yes, I am.
No.
I'm just kidding. But we'd love to go to the fight.
Yeah. We listen. We will do what we have to do. We'll get tickets. We'll do whatever we got to do.
That's a good point.
Yeah, we'll do whatever we have to do. If you have to go and sign autographs for 12 straight hours to make a deal with
I don't think there's enough people in the world to take up 12 hours of my time that'd be interested, but I'll definitely do anything required. Hey, quiet weekend on the fight front, small UFC card, but a hell of a fight over in, the home of Robin Hood in Nottingham Forest. Leigh Wood.
Nottingham, that's, like you said, that's where Robin Hood came from. That's where, they steal from the rich to give to the poor. But over there, and we'll get into it more when you see the scorecards of that fight, if it had gone to the scorecards. But what the scorecards were when it got stopped in the end of the seventh round, obviously they've changed their policies over there from taken from the rich and given to the poor. Now they just steal from anybody who comes over there trying to take a title from the local guy. I mean, really, I guess they've learned from the rest of boxing, the judging in place over there, that you rob from the traveling fighter, the house fighter has the strength, the champion has the strength, the home fighter has the strength, the fighter with the promoter has the strength. Obviously, they stayed consistent with that philosophy because they were going to rob the crap out of Lara if his fist didn't do the judging for him. I mean, we'll get into it again, but when we give you those scorecards, man, it's a disgrace. I mean, two of them had it 2 points. That's okay, but the other one had it like a shutout, and just about, well, not quite a shutout, but I mean, had it really huge in favor Wood, who was fighting a great fight. But and it became controversial at the end. There's no doubt about it. But man, Nottingham, no longer where they steal from the rich and give to the poor. Now they just steal from anybody who comes over there with a title. They just take it from them, or they make sure that they never get it, unless they do it themselves with their own bare fists. And that's exactly what Mr. Lara did.
What a friggin' fight. My God, these guys, Leigh Wood and both of these guys have been in some battles.
Tremendous crowd again, Ken. Tremendous.
Always
listen, when
UK.
I die, Ken, I want to come back as a British promoter and make $1 zillion. Because, really, because you make $1 zillion, you come back as a British boxing promoter. Because of the fans. Because of the fans across the pond. They are so they're great boxing fans, and they're so loyal to their fighters. They come out. They come out like they don't come out as regularly over here the way that they do over there. I mean, they'll come out over here if it's a mega fight, and if you set it up the right way in a local area with a local fighter. Especially back in the day, they used to do that a little bit more, not so much anymore. But if you'd have to almost have to have like an epic match over here now to get those kind of crowds. I mean, it's rare. Again, you get them. I mean, you filled out Madison Square Garden with the two ladies. That was tremendous with the two women fighters, Kate Taylor and Serrano. They filled out Madison Square Garden. It was a great fight. But it happens on a much more regular basis across the pond.
Yeah. This was a super interesting fight because Mauricio Lara, he's only 24 years old, Teddy. He's had 29 fights. He's 26-2-1 after
Well, when did he turn
victory.
pro? I mean, over there in Mexico, they turned pro at 15, 6. I mean, look at Canelo. He turned pro when he was 15. 15 or 16.
Teddy, he's 24 years old. He had his first pro fight 8 years ago. He fought at 16 in 2015.
How did I know that? Without even seeing it.
And the crazy thing is, he lost a split decision in his first fight. In his, about seventh or eighth fight, he got knocked out by a guy named Elliot Chavez, who was 5-1-1. Since then, he's been a one-man.
Yeah, he was too young.
He stopped Josh Warrington in the rematch. He got a cut over his eye in the halfway through the third round, and then he's been knocking out everyone since. I mean, he's been a one-man wrecking ball. Goes over to Nottingham. Was being set up obviously for a loss unless he lands that beautiful left hook. I think he probably would have got to Wood eventually. The way he fights, Lara seems to wear them down. But Leigh Wood, who's 34 years old and has the same exact amount of fights. 10 years older, coming off the destructive knockout in the last round, 12th round against Mick Conlon. They had him up, Teddy, 58-56 on two scorecards, 59-55 on another. Now, to be fair, I wasn't scoring it as we went along.
It was a close fight any way you look at it, Ken. I thought Wood was probably up a little bit, but either way you looked at it, it was a close fight.
But he was never, the only way Lara was getting out of there with the win, let's be honest, was with a knockout. Even then, he'd be lucky to get a split decision. So,
unless Robin Hood showed up and put an arrow into, because he was a marksman with that arrow. Now, I'm just saying, he'd have to put one into the hands. See, he could do it. He could put it right between the fingers of the judges as they were moving their pencil. Just if he saw they were moving their pencil a little bit the wrong way, he hit him with an arrow.
Robin Hood did show up. His name in this case was Ben Davison.
Oh, that's true. That's a good point. That's
not only did he throw in the towel,
good segue
he hit the ref.
There. Perfect. Beautiful.
He hit the ref right in the face with it. Listen, we'll get into this debate, but Lara hits him with a beautiful left hook. When you see him hit the deck, I was surprised that, to Leigh Wood's credit, that he was even able to get up because that was a knockout shot, stiffened him, and to Leigh Wood's credit, he got dropped against
Mickey Conlon. He got dropped against Conlon early in that fight too, and then he came back and knocked out. So let's not forget that his history. He came back and he knocked out Conlon late in that fight. He got dropped early. So if he was if he was given a chance to continue here, who's to say that he couldn't have came back? Because that's a little bit of his MO. That's a little bit of his style.
I was going to say, there was only...
that he comes back.
I think there was less than 10 seconds left, if I'm not mistaken, in the round. Yeah. But Ben Davison throws in the towel, and this is where it gets controversial, right? Because people are saying, the British press saying it's controversial. Listen,
I think it's controversial. I agree with them, but more on the side that his own guy stopped it where maybe it shouldn't have been stopped. Maybe. We're going to take that apart a little bit. But you can make an argument that he stopped it too early, especially with only seconds left in the round. You know, give him a chance to get back to the corner and recover. And then you still got the option. You still got the option in the corner to stop it if he don't look right to you. You could still do that. But when you stop it with 10 seconds left, you take away that option. Davidson knows his guy better than you or me or any of the fans. He was in camp with him for 8 weeks. Maybe something happened. Maybe he's aware of some info we're not aware of. You know, he's privy to information about his fighter that we're not. And he's there. Yeah. He's there live in person, seeing what he's seeing, you know, reacting to it. But at first blush, it really does, and this is a lifetime boxing guy telling you this, it looks like, hey, maybe, you know, you could have waited. Again, it was 10 seconds, 13 seconds. By the time they separated them, because Lara had snuck up real close looking to jump on him, the referee would have had to send them back to a neutral corner. That would have killed another 3-4 seconds. There might have been like...
And there was only, I just checked, there was less than 10 seconds left when he threw the towel in.
By the time they separated them and he sent them back to the corner, there might have been 5 seconds or so left. Look, by the time he walked across the ring, there might have been 2 seconds left. Could he land a devastating punch in 2? Yes, it's possible. But outside of that, I'm confused by Davidson stopping.
I think to your point, Teddy, you could... depending on what your agenda is, you could argue either way for this one. That was a vicious shot, but I agree, 10 seconds, like give the guy benefit of the doubt. To your point, he came back against Mick Conlon, but do you protect the guy? What if he does take that devastating shot?
No, but
this is a dangerous game.
But Ken, if it happens with a minute left in a round, I'm with you. If it happens with 2 minutes, of course, left, whatever, you know, but... Maybe even with 40, 30 seconds, maybe. But with less than 10 seconds, and with the scenario I just described, that by the time they separate him and he goes back and he walks back, there might be like, he might literally be like 2 seconds left. Get him in the corner. Revive him. See how he reacts. Let the doctor look at him. Look at his pupils. Look at his eyes. You know, see if he's there. If he's there with you, and if he's recovered enough, and then you make a decision. Then you can always stop it. You could stop it there. You could let him go out and see how he does. But anyway, you can't do any of that now because of the decision that Ben Davison made by, you know, putting the finality on it by stopping the fight. But let's go and break this one down. Do you want to say anything before I start breaking it down?
No. That's perfect setup. I think we've set it up nicely. It was a really entertaining fight, as both of these guys always deliver.
No, it was a great fight.
I thought it was a terrific corner stoppage.
I thought it was a terrific fight. It reminded me a little bit like when we were kids. Remember, Ken? And you had a party going on at your friend's house, and their parents would show up a little earlier than they were supposed to, and they ruined the whole party. Well, Ben Davison was that parent. Ben Davison was that guy. You know, he ruined the party. Now again,
he was Robin Hood for Lara, though.
Yeah, he was Robin Hood for the other guy. Exactly. Maybe he hasn't read his history about Nottingham real well. That he didn't get the script right. How it's supposed to work really when you're actually from there. But look. He thought he was doing the right thing. You have to say that. So, as far as the fight, good give and take, ebbs and flows. I I tell you, it came down to the longer, taller Wood. He was pawing with his jab, pushing with his jab, measuring, using the jab, his left jab more as a measuring rod to kind of control range, to stay out of range, and to try to set up counters against Lara. You know, Lara's got this style where maybe he thought he's coming forward, he's predictable, he could walk him into a counter. And he did, to Wood's credit. He couple times he walked him into right uppercuts, he walked him into some counter left hooks, good right hands. So he did walk him into a few counters. And that was his strategy. The problem with one of the liabilities of Wood is that he stands really erect, really straight, very much like the prototypical old-fashioned prototypical British fighter, where they would stand straight up, real pretty, you know, and real. They were known as good boxers and pretty looking, you know, in the way that statuesque, you know, stand straight up and put a boxing clinic on. The only problem when you stand straight up like that is, guess what? Punches up top can find the target because you are straight up. And very much in line, Wood is kind of has that British sort of style. Again, with being straight up, kind of like Frank Bruno, if you will, one of the popular British fighters from the 90s, 80s, whatever it was, the heavyweight. Even James Watt. Is it Watt or Watts? He was their great lightweight champion back in the 70s and the 80s. Terrific lightweight champion. He stood straight up. So the British has a history of having some of their fighters stand up in that straight way, and Wood kind of falls into line with that. And again, it's a liability because when you're standing straight up, stuff's going to find you that's thrown from down under. Or, you know, when you chuck something, you know, in that direction, there's not a lot of head movement. And when you catch him, you can catch him very clean. And obviously got caught clean. But Wood's plan was to box, to control the outside, look for the counter shots. He was doing it pretty good. And then if Lara's was to put pressure on, you know, to come forward and to look to land that terrific left hook in the Mexican tradition. He's got a terrific left hook. And as the fight was going on, there was a period where it looked to me like Lara was starting to take over, like he was going to be too physically strong, a little too physically strong for Wood. He was going to the body, shaking him to the body, going to the head. And then, to the credit of Wood, he changed it around. Like a little while later, he'd land a big right hand. And it kind of came down to his right hand, his straight right hand, his being Wood, against the left hook of Lara. It came down to those power punches on each side. And it was very interesting the way I was looking at it that way. And it also came down to some of the most simplistic things in combat sports. It came down to who's got the better chin and who's the better puncher. They were both good punchers, both of them. I would say Lara had a little edge of being physically stronger and maybe a little bit better puncher, but they both got each other's attention. They both had shaken each other during the course of the fight up to the 7th round. And then it came down to the chins because you could find both of them. You could hit both of them. And maybe both of them gutsy, both of them good chins, but maybe a little better chin on the side of Lara. Just a little bit better maybe. And at the end of the day, as the fight was progressing, like I said, what made it so interesting and so good was the ebbs and flows. And what made it a little easier to follow was that each one of them took turns shaking the other. And it made it very simplistic and almost in following the fight, in where Lara would be in charge going to the body, and he went to the body more. He was a guy who he really dedicated to the body, and he did a lot of damage down there. Where he'd be going to the body, he'd be looking to take over a little, and then all of a sudden Wood would land the right hand and visibly shake him enough, just enough to tell you, okay, he's now taking control of the fight now. Like it became a very divided, very red, clear line of when the fight was changing paces. You know what I mean, Ken? When the fight was changing gears, when one guy was taking control over the other, it became so clear that, again, the dividing line that made it so apparent was that each one would shake the other, and then you say, okay, now it's his turn. And then all of a sudden, the next round, okay, it's his turn. And I found that very interesting to follow because it was happening on a pretty regular basis. And then the end of the seventh round, with a fight that the last couple rounds leading up to the seventh, it looked like Wood was starting to be a little more consistent, which it had been Lara earlier. But now it looked like Wood was starting to shake him a little, had shaken him a couple times, a little more consistently in rounds to give himself a lead, where I thought he had a little lead, 1 or 2 points maybe, but just a nice little lead. And at any moment it could change, because it had shown us that already. The pattern of the fight had shown us that it could change in a heartbeat. It could change on a punch in a moment. And it did. The end of the round, 10 seconds left, whatever it was, he catches him a left hook. Now, here's the thing. Lara's got a beautiful left hook. And the reason why his got there before, they were both throwing left hooks. And there's an old saying, don't hook with a hooker. And the reason, people never explain what that means. Just that you don't hook with a hooker. The other guy's got a better hook, I guess. But why is it? Lara's, I'm going to break down to you what makes Lara so good and better on this particular night, where they were both throwing the hook and his got there first. Because his is coming on a different trajectory. It's coming on a different angle. Where Wood is throwing a nice left hook, but it's more of a traditional, conventional one where the elbow comes up and where it's the same height as the shoulder, and it comes around. And it comes around where if your glove is there, the glove might catch it. This one by Lara, he threw it differently. He morphed it a little bit, where he threw it almost with a little bit of a trajectory of a little bit of an uppercut, a little bit, where he changed the direction, where instead of the conventional with the elbow up, he had the elbow lower. There's different ways. The old saying, there's more ways than one to skin a cat. Well, there's more ways than one to throw a hook. And he had the elbow down.
Here's the screen. Here's the video.
Yeah, good. Beautiful. He had the elbow down. And look at it. See, the elbow wasn't as high. And when he threw it with a trajectory where his trajectory, and I'm glad we have a picture of it, the trajectory that Lara threw it with, on what I'm explaining and describing, it got to the tip of the chin, where Woods was aimed for more of the center, the higher part of the chin. You see the difference there, Ken? Where it's coming for the tip of the chin. Guess what's not at the tip of the chin? The glove of Wood is not at the tip. It's deeper. The glove is deeper. Where if it was a traditional hook, it would have caught the glove. But throwing the hook where he did, it's not traditional. It's, like I said, he changed the angle just enough to throw it at the tip of the chin, where he could catch an area that was naked, an area that was uncovered by the chin. That's what made the difference. That's why you don't hook with a hooker. That's why you don't hook with Lara, because Lara's hook has a PhD in it. It has a PhD. It's a little more advanced. And that's why it got there. And you could see Wood was shocked, because all he remembered probably was, I'm throwing a left hook and bang. The next thing, I'm on the floor. And he gets dropped by that left hook. So that is the anatomy of a left hook right there. And in particular, Lara's left hook. It was brilliant. It was brilliant. It was beautiful. What happens after that is the controversial. That evokes all the controversy. Because now he gets up, he behaves like a fighter, like a champion, wants to keep his belt, he's home. He gets up, behaves like a champion, and suddenly, shockingly, Ben Davidson, his corner guy, throws the towel in. And again, we've gone over this already. But real quick, only seconds left by time. And if you notice, Lara was up close. So the referee would have turned around before he let them continue fighting. The referee would have had to push him back. He would have had to push him back to his corner. And it would have gave him a couple more seconds. And who knows? By the time he walked back towards the round would have been just about over. And watch. He said, now look how close Lara is. Now he turns around. He would have had to push him back. Now the towel came in. But he would have had to push Lara back, Ken, to my point. Yep. And that would have taken another 2 seconds, another 3 seconds. Right there. He would have had to send him back to the neutral corner. Then he would have had to walk all the way back, which would have taken time. Who knows? The bell might have rung before he ever got there, but it doesn't matter. Because the towel comes in. Now let's look at him. Ken, you made a good point here, and I want to give your point some play here. Now you said that he was wobbled by the punch. Yeah, he was, and he went back. But to me, he's okay. To me, at first you said, well, he went back and he kind of fell on the rope. But to me, he placed his hands on the rope. And he was like asking, what the frick is going on? Like right now, like, what the hell are you doing? What are you doing? So I'm going to argue, I get your point, Ken. At first you were saying, well, maybe he was a little wobbly. I don't think so. Yes, I agree he was caught a hell of a shot. I agree he was hurt. He was shaken, like fighters are shaken and hurt. And sometimes they survive, sometimes they don't. Sometimes they come back, sometimes they don't. But he wasn't given that chance. And was he in the worst condition of a fighter I've ever seen that gets up in that kind of situation? No, not even close. Not even close. I take it that he had been hurt, but not even close to where he was stumbling all over the ring and he couldn't defend himself. So, look, Ben Davidson made himself the focal point. At first you say, wow, compassion. We need compassion in this world. We need compassion in this sport. Okay, beautiful. But then after you think about it a little bit, hey, this isn't, it's not the ballet, right? This isn't, it's not the opera, right? And they know the risk. Part of being a champion is taking the risk and overcoming the risk and finding a way. You could make an argument. His trainer didn't give him a chance to find a way. And now, here's the thing that I have a question about, and I want to discuss with you a little bit. Ben Davidson's background. I don't know it. This is all I know about it. And then you give me your spiel. All I know about it is he came out of nowhere. He suddenly showed up with Tyson Fury. He suddenly showed up after Tyson Fury had been in a spiral, a terrible spiral, to hell, where he had been involved with drugs and alcohol and terrible depression, and he came out of it, and then he fought Wilder, which the rest is history. He pulled off the draw, and then later in the rematch he knocked him out, and then he became a zillionaire and a famous fighter, and Tyson Fury became more than that. He became a great story. He became more than even a great story. He became somebody when you're down to look at as an example and say, hey, it's never over. It's never over. Don't give up on yourself. Don't give up. You can still do it. You can still be a champion. Look at Tyson Fury. So it's been a tremendous journey for Tyson Fury. But as far as I know, Ken, Ben Davidson, this guy, he shows up all of a sudden, out of nowhere, in the corner for Tyson Fury in his comeback fight against Wilder after he'd been off for about 2 years, dealing with all the demons he was dealing with. And he was kind of introduced as his friend and his life coach, like a guy that was helping him get his life back, that was helping him through his depression. And then he was gone. They win the fight. They fight a draw. I don't know if he lasted one more fight or that was the end of it. But then Fury got rid of him. He's gone. And then all of a sudden, he shows up with another big name fighter. And all of a sudden, next thing you know, a star is born. Basically, next thing you know, he's got a career. He's with big name fighters. Like he never worked his way up. Now look. I'll be the first one to say, okay, if you give me the information, I'm the first to admit that's all I know about him. I don't know more about his history. What is or what isn't. I don't know if he had a history of boxing. The little I know, he didn't. He just showed up the way I just described it. And bang, he's in a big money. He's in a big fights. He's got that big responsibility out of nowhere. Where normally the road you would take is in the amateurs. You were a fighter is a good way yourself. Then you or whatever. Then you're in the amateurs. Then you work your way up. You train in amateurs. You work your way up to train in pros. You go through the steps. You go through the process. You go through what anybody would go through in any job. Whether it's sports, baseball, basketball, there's an apprenticeship. It seems like there was none of that with him. Like I said, bang, he's there. Do you know any more about his history than I just put out there? That there is more of a history that I'm not aware of?
No, that's exactly what I know. And I always thought it was strange, too, because when he started working with Tyson, he was incredibly young. But I get the impression he's charismatic and,
that's
talked his way into the role. And
I know a lot of
there's a reason.
Charismatic. That doesn't mean that they should be in the corner training a fighter. But I get it. All right.
Sounds like he was a good friend to Tyson when he needed a friend.
Yeah, that's what I described. That's what I said.
But and now he's not with them anymore. But I think having Tyson Fury validate him, he's now linking up with other fighters. But a story just came out on. As we're talking, and credit to Boxing Scene, they just put a story out literally while we were talking. Kyle Froch says initially he thought that the stoppage was early, but he said after speaking to Leigh Wood early on Sunday, he said, "Look, I was gone, my legs were gone. Ben Davison knows Leigh Wood better than any of us. He was training camp with him. It was a compassionate move by him. Initially thought it was hasty, but looking back after listening to Leigh Wood, it was the right thing to do."
Yeah, but the only argument I would
is maybe trying to. I don't know if Leigh Wood's trying to protect his guy now after the fact.
Maybe not. Hey, look, I did say that the trainer knows the fighter better than anyone. He's been in camp with him. Mm-hmm. He's seen him. He knows when he's hurt, he's not hurt. We don't know that. We don't know that side of him. We don't know how he reacts to getting hurt. We've never seen it before except when we're watching in a fight. He's seen it in the gym. He's seen it up close. He knows that if his fighter looks a certain way, it means A rather than B. And he reacted to that. That's fine. That's fine. But I would still put a but in there. You still got the option. That by time that they separate the fighters and by time the Lara crosses the ring, the bell is going to ring. If it didn't ring, it's going to ring within a second or two. Get him back to the corner. See if you revive him. See if, as Wood just said, that his legs still weren't there. If he still wasn't there, and then you make a decision. Okay, you know what, son? I'm not letting you go out now. I'm worried. This guy's gonna come after you. He smells blood in the water. He's gonna be coming out after you, and it's gonna take you another minute to get yourself together. And I'm not gonna take a chance of the damage you might take during that minute. Beautiful. That's professional. That's compassionate. And professional. Everything you're supposed to be. That's the only thing, and that's what we're here for. We're here to argue both, to be the devil's advocate on both sides, and that's what we're doing. That's all.
Yeah. I mean, that pretty much sums it up. Nevertheless, great performance from Mauricio Lara. I think I read that there was a rematch clause. It seems like there's a rematch clause anytime an A-side fighter loses these days.
Wait, let's finish with the scores, though. Those scores, again, I know we touched on it already, but Ken, let me just give a boo. I got to give a boo, okay? Boo to the judges that had it 59-55. Come on. Come on. 58, 56, 58, 56, 59, 55. Come on. Really?
Yeah. Yeah, it doesn't sound like there was any chance that Lara was getting the win there, no matter what happened. But, I do think Wood was ahead slightly. But not surprisingly, the way Lara has fought in the past, comes on strong, takes a minute to figure his guy out. But yeah, awesome fight, incredibly entertaining.
Yeah, it was great. It was great while it lasted. I mean,
Yep.
It was great until the parents showed up and said, "Okay, everyone out. Everybody out! Out! Music off!"
Pretty much. Yep.
Hey, but maybe he was a parent. Maybe, again, I'm both sides here. I'm fair, right? Both sides.
Yep.
Maybe he was the parent that knew better. Maybe he was.
Yeah.
Maybe he was.
Yeah. Yep. Fair, very fair. That's all I got on that one. You got any final comments before we move on to the upcoming fights?
No. I mean, I think we covered it really well.
Yeah, I agree.
It was a great fight with a disappointing ending, but maybe it was the right ending. Maybe it was,
Yep. Well, we got a big one coming up Sunday. Jake Paul, Tommy Fury for the people at my bookie. Let me give you the line. I want to get your thoughts. I know we've discussed this one in the past, and if anyone forgot, we discussed it. The boxing media certainly won't let you forget. They love to report on what Teddy thinks about the upcoming fights. It's become this podcast has become an excellent source of media coverage. So if you didn't watch the fights, you can tune in here and write your whole article based on Teddy's breakdown and thoughts on the upcoming fights. Tommy Fury plus 122, Jake Paul minus 170.
I'm taking
line's closer than I thought.
How many rounds and what's the under-over if they have one?
They have an over-under, so we got over 6.5 is at minus 186, under 6.5 plus money at plus 132.
And how many rounds is the fight? I don't even know.
I believe it's 8
rounds?
I will confirm.
I'm guessing 8.
I believe it's 8 rounds. Yeah. I'll confirm. Assume it's 8.
Unless they decided to go 10, but I don't think he made that jump yet, Jake, to 10, did he?
It is a 10-round fight.
See,
my instinct
told me. My instinct told me at the last second. Maybe he made that jump because Jake's improving. He's improving confidence-wise and
10-round
as a
cruiserweight.
fighter. He's improving confidence. Plus, I think it's a smart move because he is improving. He is getting calmer in an uncalm environment where you won't gas out when you're calm. And I think he's the stronger guy, so he might need rounds. He might need those. He's smart, Jake Paul. He might be a smart businessman. But he's picking his spots pretty good, obviously, and you can't blame him. You give him credit for that.
I was at the fight. I was at Tommy Fury's fight against Anthony Taylor. It was a 4-round fight, and Tommy Fury was completely gassed in the 4th round. I mean, gassed.
Jake Paul saw that, and listen again. He's a stronger guy. I think physically stronger, better puncher. He's getting more mature as time goes on in the ring. He's getting with his seasoning. He's getting more confident. I believe that he thinks, give me a couple extra rounds to use my strength, to wear this guy down. Maybe this guy's going to move on me. I might need a few extra rounds to cut the ring down, make the ring shrink and get to him. So I think he's thinking in that way, which shows he's thinking like a fighter, which shows he's maturing and growing like a fighter. Look, I like Fury. If I was betting, I bet on not Fury. I'm sorry. I like Jake Paul. Yeah, if I was betting, I bet on Jake Paul. I'd probably bet the over.
You'd lay the 170.
I'd lay the 170. And what are you getting with the under-over?
Over, you're laying 186.
Yeah, see, they're thinking away.
Over 6.5.
Yeah. I mean, I'd probably be careful with that, but I probably would tend to go towards the over if I went anywhere with the under-over totals. But I like Jake Paul to win the fight. Listen, Fury It's the first pure boxer fighter that he's fought. But he's a guy that's been protected. He's a guy that's got really a built-up record, a record that's a bit of an illusion. He's 8-0, right? But, David Copperfield could have made this record. He's
8-0. He's 8-0, Teddy, with only 4 knockouts. At his weight class, you would expect a prospect to knock out all the guys, considering how bad the guys are. He fought his last. He's had one fight beyond 4 rounds. He had one 6-rounder that went the distance that he won.
Well, most of his opponents
actually had a 10-1 record.
Well, most of his,
that guy beat.
Most of it, it's a built-up record. But most of it's not hard to do in boxing. But most of the guys that Fury has fought, most of them didn't even have a win. And if you put their total record together, you could do it for me. But I think they got close to 200 losses with like 20-something wins.
Teddy, he fought 2 guys. One guy was 0-26 with 2 draws, and another guy was 0-11, 0-9, 0-1.
Yeah, but they were learning.
He's got 4 of his 8 fights were against guys that never won a fight.
Yeah, but they were slow learners. They were just going to take time for them to, to mature a little bit.
Can you imagine the guy with 26 losses? What do you do for work, brother? I'm a boxer. Oh, yeah, professional? Yeah. What's your record? 0-26.
Yeah, but here's the thing. What are you wearing to the ring? Do you wear boxing trunks? No, I wear a swimming suit because, I go diving a lot. Oh, so...
I wear oven mitts.
Yeah, so are you a boxer or... Well, when I'm not boxing, I'm out at the coral reefs doing a little bit of snorkeling.
I'm a crash test
dummy.
Yeah,
I'm doing a little deep water, underwater observation and swimming and, diving. I do a little underwater diving. But look, bottom line is he's fighting the first real boxer that's not an MMA guy, that's not really old, where people say he's old and he's past himself, which is true. He fought a lot of guys obviously older, later in their career, MMA guys that weren't known as great traditional strikers, but they were real fighters. They were professional fighters, and he beat them. And now he's fighting a guy. People ask for it. Be careful you don't get what you ask for. People said, when's he going to fight a boxer? Well, he picked him again. Nobody knocked Floyd Mayweather when he picked his guys pretty smart. And Floyd Mayweather's got all my respect in the world. Great fighter. And a great businessman at the same time. And a great matchmaker, too. Of course, Mayweather fought real fighters. We get it. But he's fighting real fighters. He's being selective with it. He picked his first boxer. He picked a guy that, as Jake Paul himself said, he's beaten a lot of cab drivers. And as I added to that, I added to that statement, but they're not good cab drivers. They're guys with suspended licenses. They're guys that don't even have a license. They're guys that run their car into poles. I mean, so... But he is a fighter. He comes from a boxing family, Fury. He's got a boxing lineage to him. I don't know how many amateur fights he had, but I've seen enough tape on him to see that he knows his way around the ring. He knows how to look like a fighter. Does he know how to behave like a fighter when it becomes a real fight? I don't know, because he hasn't been in a real fight yet. So I don't know if he does. I know that Jake Paul does. Yeah, I'm not making him, believe me, I'm not making him, Roberto Duran. Don't get crazy out there. I'm not going crazy, but I know he knows how to behave a fight. I've seen him get tested enough to know that Jake Paul knows how to behave like a fighter. Again, maybe Fury does, and I'm gonna assume that he does, but you can't really assume until you know. And he knows how to look like a fighter. He knows how to move around the ring. He knows how to, throw some good counter punches and put some punches together. He knows how to do all of that. But does he know when the moment comes how to bite down and be a fighter? Jake Paul doesn't think he does. That's part of why he's taking this fight in his mind. I guarantee you. And another thing that from the physical attributes and the physical side of it, where you can handicap that stuff and you look at that stuff when you're picking an opponent, Fury's not a puncher. Paul's the better puncher in this fight. Fury's not a puncher. He's a guy who'll probably try to use the ring, use his boxing skills, and Paul's physically, I think, very superior physically to Fury in certain areas, like physical strength. So I think that Paul's going to look to cut the ring down. That's why he wants the extra rounds. Probably try to get a small ring. I would if I was him. He's the golden goose. He's the money guy. He's the guy bringing the money. I demand a smaller ring, as small as I could get. I'd get a phone booth if I could. Are you kidding me? And now he's gonna look to cut the ring down. He's gonna have to use a jab, maybe the jab to the chest of Paul to stabilize him so he can't pot shot him. Try to go to the body of the less physical man. If I was Paul, that's what I would do. And try to impose my physicality on him and my will. I would believe I got the stronger will. I'm stronger physically. I'm going to make this fight that kind of fight. That's what I would expect Paul to do against Fury. And of course, Fury's going to say, hey, I'm going to expose the guy. I'm going to box. I'm going to frustrate him. I'm going to move around. I'm going to use the ring. I'm going to pot shot. We'll see. As I said, I think I broke it down. I think I went into all the dimensions that have to be gone into to give our fans out there a peek at what I think the fight could be portraying. I'm going with Paul. I think that he knows exactly why he picked this guy, and he's gonna come out on top.
God knows he's been chasing him long enough. They've tried to make this fight 3 or 4 times, it seems like. And after listening to that breakdown, I think I might have to throw a few shekels on Paul myself, and I'm going to do it with MyBookie. Check them out at mybookie.ag. If you use the promo code ATLAS, they'll give you a 50% credit up to $1,000 on your first deposit. So you deposit $2,000, they'll give you another $1,000 to bet with. Go to mybookie.ag. Right now, the line on MyBookie is Fury plus 122, Paul minus 170, and the over-under is over 6.5, minus 186, under 6.5, plus 132. Bet responsibly. Don't bet money you can't afford to lose. Use your head. And but if you like what you hear, go over to MyBookie if you're going to make a bet, and check them out at mybookie.ag. Use promo code ATLAS.
And the best way to do it, if you could, might be hard because he basically lives on a compound. But if you could borrow the money from Ken and then bet with that money, that might be. That might be, but it'd be hard to get to him, though. It'd be hard to get.
You better come up with a GoFundMe strategy. Asking me to borrow money to make a bet would be a tough ask. That would be telling me that you're down on your luck and you have some sob story.
A little too sharp for that.
Wouldn't be the first time friends from Boston have asked me to make a loan. One time a guy asked me to make a loan so he could get into a card game, and he would give me a percentage of the winning. I literally was like, are you doing drugs right now? Are you insane? Can I give you money to get into a card game? Come on, brother.
I'm just going to go buy $100 worth of lottery and
I'll scratch tickets.
I'll be in, I think, as good a place as I would with that. Or
I'd take the money and light it on fire because it's the same thing.
Yeah, I would.
And it won't frustrate me when you tell me you're not paying me back.
That doesn't make you the amazing Kreskin to come up with that way of thinking. But yes, I would tend to go with you, Mr. Kenneth, on that one. And I think we got one more to give a little preview of. I think we touched on it once before, but take it away, baby.
Yeah. I would say for this, like you said it earlier, Johnny Bones Jones, for my money, he's the best fighter in the history of the UFC. And I think that more people would think that exact thing if he didn't have so many off the field issues with the hit and run, the drugs, the allegations and, actually suspension from performance enhancers. I like John Jones a lot. I think he struggles with a lot of demons. And listen, not for me to throw stones. Like, I have my own problems and I've dealt with my own issues. But I think if John doesn't have the off-field issues with the domestic abuse, the umpteen arrests, and I feel bad for him because he's clearly struggling with some issues. But I think when he's on his game, if you take out the personal stuff and you just look at him in the ring, he's a wrecking ball. When he's on, when he's focused and prepared for a fight, I think he's the best there ever was. He can wrestle, he can punch, he can kick. He's got everything. the guy is unstoppable. If he wins this title at heavyweight, I just don't know what stops him from being like the greatest of all time. But, that's always an interesting debate. What do you like in this Ciryl Gane matchup? Look, Ciryl Gane, the way Francis Ngannou, and we love Francis, but he's not known for his wrestling prowess. And as soon as Gane started to get to Francis a little, even with Francis's bad knee, he basically won the fight in a wrestling match. I think Jon Jones, wrestling against anyone at any weight, he's going to dominate. And if Ciryl Gane, if he sees what Francis did with Ciryl, I think if Ciryl has any success on the feet early, other than catching Jon with a clean shot, Jon takes him to the ground and just like dominates him. Like it's easy work, I think, for Jon. What do you think?
Well, obviously Jon has a lot at risk, so he's probably thinking along your lines because he's got the confidence of great fighters, belief that they can beat anyone. And he's got a lot to lose because he does have that, reputation, that stature right now of being the greatest of all time, or one of the greatest. For me, Anderson Silva is my greatest of all time, right there with Jon Jones. And I'll put in two other names. Khabib. We can't forget Khabib. Khabib should be up there with greatest of all time. Jon Jones, Anderson Silva again. That's my select. And SSP. Am I saying it right?
GSP. GSP.
The guy from Canada, St. Pierre. The
only thing I will say I'll add about those guys from the past, and this was a funny one. I saw an interview with Anderson Silva, and he's in his house and he's doing an interview. And of course, the Eagle Eyes on Reddit, on the internet, did a freeze frame, and they're like, stop right there. Look on Anderson's shelf. That's HGH. That's human growth hormone on his shelf. No question about it. And you zoom in, and sure enough, there it is. But I think until USADA came into the UFC, I think it was fair game that everyone was not, it was not only accepted, but encouraged that everyone was taking performance enhancers. So that to me always has a bit of a cloud, but I would argue that if he was doing it, everyone was like
did he ever get caught?
Yeah.
Did he ever get tested where they?
That's a good question. I think let me
because if he was never tested, I'm not saying that it's good if you never got caught. I'm not for the people out there that want to go nuts, but I'm just saying there's been plenty of people in boxing and in this that have been caught. Plenty of them. Canelo's one of them. Let's be honest here. He had that bad hamburger. He had that bad hamburger over in Mexico. You remember that?
Anderson Silva got popped for PEDs in 2015, shortly after his defeat of Nick Diaz at UFC 183. The 45-year-old Silva was found once again to have failed a test with USADA before his scheduled fight with Kelvin Gastelum.
How old was he? He says,
I don't regret anything because everything has... I think he's 45 now, but I don't think he was 45 when he got tested for...
I thought he said 45.
He said he has no regrets about his past suspension for performance-enhancing drugs, going on to say that it likely his last fight, blah, 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 blah. But yeah, he's on a record with a couple of
I don't condone cheating.
PEDs.
Nobody wants to cheat. Nobody wants to cheat. There's a lot of controversy right now out there floating around whether or not Makhachev, who I think is great, but I also think Volkanovski is really great. There's controversy floating around now whether or not...
about the IV.
Yeah, whether or not he took an illegal IV after the weigh-in, Makhachev being he, to rehydrate, which is illegal. And we know he's had trouble making weight in the past. We know that. He's a big guy. He was much bigger than Volkanovski. But, it's in the air. We don't know for sure. But look, at the end of the day, you still got to go in that octagon. You still got to go in that
100%.
ring. You still got to do it. You still got to face the things you got to face, the dangers that you got to face, the demons that come at you, the ninjas that come over the wall. You still got to be special. And these guys are special, and Jon Jones is as special as any of them. So as far as breaking this fight down, because of where you led me, Jones has more to lose than anybody, because it's not too often that you are being labeled the King of Kings, that you're being labeled the greatest of all time. And he'll lose that probably if he doesn't win this, even though he's got a lot of things going against him in this, starting with inactivity. I find it nobody's really talked about that this guy has been inactive now for 3 years. 3 years since Jones been in the ring. That has to have an impact. Has to have an impact on him, because one of the attributes that makes Jones so special is his athleticism, right? You'd agree, wouldn't you, with that, Ken? That he's a superior.
He's unbelievable.
He comes from a superior athletic family with just great genetics in the NFL, football. I mean, his family is just. My son Teddy told me this at first. He said, "Dad, it's incredible the genetics in that family." So,
well, remember Chandler Jones? For the Raiders. At the end of the game of the Patriots made a bonehead play. They threw the ball. Chandler Jones got it. He ran over the quarterback, Mac Jones, like Mac Jones was an infant. He practically stepped on his chest going through.
Well, he was an infant compared to this guy. But the point I'm making,
they're freaks,
is that part of what makes him so great is his athleticism, his genetically God-given, parent given genetics and he's worked his backside to take those genetics and form them into something great, and he has. But that athleticism that separates him has to be compromised after a 3-year layoff. And you know what I'm going to use for Exhibit A to make my point with that, Ken? Another fight that was highly anticipated years ago, a fight that at the time was amongst the two greatest, to be the greatest, and it was also for the heavyweight title, but it was in my sport, in boxing. It was Muhammad Ali versus Joe Frazier, the fight of the century, the first fight of the two. Ali was coming off, the great undefeated Ali was fighting the great undefeated Joe Frazier. Ali was thought of as the greatest. He was coming off 3.5 year inactivity for his refusal to be inducted into the army, during the Vietnam War because of his religious beliefs. And he lost 3.5 years of his prime. And he was not athletic. What separated him up to that time was his athleticism, his confidence, everything else, his skills, his timing. I get it. But he was athletically superior, Ali is he, to everyone else, Ken. Everyone else. And now he came into the ring, 3.5 year layoff with Joe Frazier, and he athletically was not the same athlete. All right? Let me get right to it.
Interesting. Yeah, that's a good point.
He was not the same athlete. And he lost. It was a great fight. He was special in his effort. If only a special fighter like him could give the effort he gave against Joe Frazier at that period when Joe Frazier was really good, but and active and young. And he was a machine, Joe Frazier. He was a punching, left-hooking machine that only knew one direction, forward, one way, destroy you, body and head. But Ali fought a hell of a fight, but he lost. He was not his ability to be elusive was sapped from him. His agility was greatly diminished. His speed was tarnished. He was not the same fighter. And if some of those things, and I think you'd have to assume that some of them will happen, because it happens, because nobody beats old man time. There's certain things that are just consistent. I mean, you're a great athlete and you're away for 3 years. You're going to be compromised. Your athleticism, some of it is going to be lost. I think it comes down to how much of it is lost with Jones. How much? Just like with Ali, with Frazier. Now, here's a big difference with the styles of Gane and Frazier. When Ali was fighting Frazier, his style was the opposite of Gane. It was all physical. It was all brute force and strength and pressure coming forward. Gane is not that guy. He's a big, strong guy, bigger than Jones, naturally bigger. That's part of what makes this such a great mystique to this fight. Can the smaller man beat the great bigger man? Yeah, Gane is big, but he's not the physical force that a Joe Frazier style would bring, or even a Francis Ngannou would bring. He's more cerebral. He's more sophisticated. He's more like Jones in some ways, or just a bigger version. He's more about finesse. He's more about athleticism. He's agile. He's elusive. He's all those things, Gane. So it's very interesting. Can Jones, with 3 years old, away from the game, 3 years off, can he still put forward the athletic effort he will need to? But maybe he won't need to in some of those areas that have been diminished as far as pure physical areas. Maybe his experience, his confidence, his cerebralness, his ability to have an advantage, maybe even with a bigger man on the floor, if he could get him to the floor as you proposed and get him to grappling, get him to that place where he's superior and should be superior and has superior talents and skills than Gane does, maybe he can do that. But maybe he gets away with certain, where even though he's been diminished in those athletic areas, maybe being that he's fighting a guy who's very athletic, maybe he wants to turn it into a physical. How interesting is that as I'm speaking? That maybe the smaller guy will want to turn it into less athletic and more physical and get him on the floor. Maybe that'll be his approach. I've just already given you like 5 different ways and reasons why you should watch this fight. Really. Because you could make so many arguments how it could go, which way it could go, who could win. It's so interesting. It really is. Because at the end of the day, the thing that really my mind goes to is that Gane, even though he's the bigger guy and he should have that advantage of what bigger guys have, right? Physically strong, pick him up, throw him out of the ring like Hulk Hogan did, to Sylvester Stallone, right?
WWE.
And Rocky or whatever. Well, but again, Gane is more of what the athletic guy. He's more of kind of like what Ali was, like what I was describing. He's a boxer. He's got good finesse. He's very sophisticated with his approach, with his style, with his skill. He's elusive. So maybe because of that, Jones does the tiny little Jones, right? The Jones that could. Maybe he goes and he takes him to the floor. I'm more excited about this, watching this fight and going to be part of this fight with ESPN when I go out there with Charlie Monahan and Anthony Smith and all those guys to the UFC fight in Vegas. I'm more excited about it now than I was when I came on this broadcast before I started breaking it down. I'm serious. I really am.
I completely agree. I think that there's so much intrigue with this fight. You know what's crazy? I'm looking at the record of Jon Jones. Listen to these stats. I mean, just pull up his record. 15 title fight wins in a row. 18 wins in a row. 26-1. His only loss is a DQ to Matt Hamill. That was massively controversial. This guy, he's a wrecking ball. No one's even, I would argue that the fights he had that were close against Dominic Reyes, look what he did to DC. DC's a legend, a double champ. John handled him easily.
But Ali was handling a lot of guys with his speed, with his boxing ability. He wasn't a guy that ran over you physically, but with his speed and everything, he was in a different class. And then what happens? He goes away for 3.5 years. He comes back and he's not quite the same fighter. What is Jones going to be? That's a big part of this. You almost should have Monty Hall as the ring announcer. Remember the guy from Let's Make a Deal where he had the curtains? What's behind curtain number 1? Let's see what we got. Let's see what we got behind curtain number 2. What do you got behind Ken Rideout? What's behind curtain number 3? Monty Hall, you almost need him instead of whoever the hell the ring announcer. They got all different kinds now, Buffalo, whatever. Maybe you need that kind of guy now to bring him out. You want promotion? I'm going to give you an idea out there, you guys. Not that Dana White needs any ideas. He's pretty damn good. I think he's doing pretty good. I think Dana White's doing good. He doesn't need any advice from Teddy Atlas. But Bring them out there. They're doing all these things with smoke and they come out in all different outfits on and
a fog machine,
all kinds of crazy stuff. Why not bring them out and put them behind 3 different curtains and have like a Monty Hall look-alike? Say, okay, which John Jones will we get? Will it be the one behind curtain number 1? And then show a quick clip of how he destroyed everybody, like you talked about,
For the guys at my bookie, John Jones minus 166, Ciryl Gane plus 131, no over under. What do you like? I think that you got to lay the money there with John Jones until someone beats him. I got to lay whatever they ask.
Don't forget the 3 years. Don't forget the 3 years. Don't forget the 3 years.
I'm with you.
Gane,
without the 3 years, he's like a 3-1 favorite.
Jones is damn good everywhere, striking everything. But if Gane can keep it striking, and he's the guy who's been active, and he's the guy whose reflexes are going to be more in tune, let's say, because he's been active, and the other guy's coming out of the mothballs, right? If Gane can keep it on his feet and make it purely a striking match, Gane probably has a good chance to win. This is a tough one. But if you're just a believer, if you're more, and it's probably more from the Teddy Atlas school, if you're more just a believer, when somebody's great, they're great till it's over, that they're great. That they find a way to be great again when they have to. If you're from that school, then you go and you lay it and you bet on John Jones.
Yep. That's what I'm thinking. Until someone beats John Jones, you'd feel pretty silly making a bet on anyone to beat him until he proves that he's not
I disagree
athletic.
with not in this one, because if anything lined up right for him to finally lose, it's all the things we just touched on. It's the time off, and it's the guy that he's in there with. This
for sure
the ability of this guy.
I agree with everything you're saying, but I go back to that old school thought of until someone beats him, I can't bet against him. Until proven otherwise, I just keep laying wood on John Jones. Be interesting to see how motivated he is.
Well, he's got to be, because again, forget about money for a second. We never forget about money. I get it, but
15 title fights in a row. If he doesn't have a house built out of gold, it's crazy.
But this is the one, everyone needs more money, even you. But this is the one, almost everyone, except you. But this is the one where the one thing that money can't buy, like that commercial, how much for popcorn at a game, you go with your father, how much for beer, how much for a pretzel, how much for this, but how much for the experience? Priceless. And you know what's priceless? Yep. John Jones having that stature, having that place as the greatest of all time. That's priceless.
Along those lines, if I had a race anywhere other than Tokyo, which was a pain in the neck to get into and to go to and to plan,
it would have been great to have you and Rob there with me for this one.
I know.
Because Charlie's got it all set up where we're going to be down there.
I know. Don't make me feel worse.
I'm sorry.
Now you're just rubbing it in.
No, I'm not rubbing it.
You know I want to.
But if that hamstring gets any worse, just cancel. Stay away.
Well, to be honest with you, you know what's crazy? I got my bib number, and they have corral assignments.
What
because
number?
What
number, buddy?
Oh, it's horrible. 35077.
Too many
and they have me like three in the third corral. They have me in the third corral, which normally in Berlin, in every major marathon in the last 17 months, I've been first or second in my age group. I won the Masters in New York. I've been in the pro field or the semi-elite field with the pros.
They don't know who you are over in Tokyo? Come on.
Teddy, emailed them. I said, hey, I think this is a mistake.
Yeah, it's a mistake.
Like, I've been in the top 100. They emailed me back, said, sorry, we don't make any exceptions. The rules and everything, and the rigmarole you have to go through with this marathon is crazy. But I was telling Rob before we came on, I said, okay, I tried the first line of defense, the regular route. Hey, help desk, I think there's a mistake. They were like, nope, it's not a mistake. We don't make any exceptions. So I said to Rob, the poor race director is about to get hit with about 10 or 20 emails from agents, sponsors, pro athletes, race director from Boston. I've called everyone to try and help fix this, because starting a race 2,000 people deep in the field when I normally have started standing on the start line. That's a lot of people to get. Oh, it's a nightmare.
That's rough.
It's like causing me so much anxiety.
That's
you know,
all.
I like.
But you know what?
It's hard
I can't
enough
remember which horse it was. I'll put it up to Rob. But there was a horse in the Kentucky Derby years ago, I think, where he was like, there was like too many horses in the field. It was like 24 horses.
Yeah.
Crazy. And he was like the worst post position you could have. Like all the way in the back of the 24. And you know what? He worked his way up, worked his way up, worked his way up. And he won the Kentucky Derby, just like my man Ken Rideout is going to do whatever it is. If the agents get it worked out, beautiful. If they don't, guess what? You'll find a way. You'll find a way.
You know what? The mistakes that I've made previously, always in every single race, is running too fast in the first half and then hanging on in the back half. And sometimes I can hold on and have a respectable time, but I've never gotten it right where I've run like 115 for the first half, which would be really slow for me, and then a 113 on the back half. I've gone 113, 115, 114, 115, but I've never gotten it right. So I'm going to look at it like, okay, maybe this will force me to ease into it and get through halfway around 115, 114, and then come out with a 112, 113. No, I want to get just under 228. I'd love to run 227. That would be my new PR, and that's the goal for that. And we'll talk more about it next week.
See, now you know what you're doing right now. You're thinking the way that I want you to think. The way winners think. No, really. The way winners think.
No, you're right.
Good.
You're right. You have to, and I think that's a good lesson for everyone in everything is like, you've said this before, and I've tried to like echo this anytime I've spoken to anyone about nerves, especially with my youngest son who's really getting into the jiu-jitsu now. I said, everyone is always feeling the same thing because we're all nervous, but the things that you can imagine that can happen are countless. And, you could break your leg. The guy could punch you in the mouth. You could trip.
There's control over reality. Reality, only certain things can happen. That's it. That's it. That's what you got to remind yourself. The enemy, the ninjas over the wall, is the imagination, because there's no roof on that. There's no limit on that. That could destroy you. And I want to make, before we finish this, I think it was a great episode. It was great conversation. I think we touched on a lot of things. I hope the people really enjoy this one. I hope they enjoy all of them, but I think they really enjoy this one. But there's one other lesson, and you touched on it earlier, and I didn't jump on it, and it's about Lara. Controversy or not, he won the title. He had to go over there to England to win the title. He won the title. He's a champion. He looks like a guy who could stay a champion for a while. But here's the thing. You touched on it when you were going over his early record. He lost. He got knocked out in
first fight.
I think he lost to draw his first fight, and then I think he got knocked out in the second or third fight. I think. Maybe I'm wrong. Either way, it doesn't matter.
Give me 1 second.
Doesn't matter much.
No, but I want to check because I think it was the first one. Let me just check. Hold on. The other thing I was going to say is, hang on.
Check on that because I want to finish that point.
Yeah. Mauricio Lara, he lost by a split decision in his very first fight, and then he got knocked out in his 10th fight. All
right, look, here's a guy who's champion of the world. He's on top of the world. He got knocked out. He lost his first fight out of the gate. You know, all the dreams, everything else, right? You're going to be undefeated, whatever. He loses. Then he gets knocked out in his 10th fight. Again, you know, he could have felt sorry for himself. He could have let go of his dreams, everything, whatever, made excuses, whatever. He could have went the wrong way. He went the right way. So, again, always lessons in life all around us. All you have to do is look. All you have to do is look and grab a few of those lessons. And we try to give them too. There's lessons all the time. We just try to bring them a little bit more out to the public consumption, so you can look at it and look at a guy like Lara and say, "Oh yeah, I had some difficulty. I'm starting out with a new business. I'm starting with new classes. I'm starting with in baseball. I'm trying out for the team. I didn't make the cut. Whatever." I'm trying out for the acting class. I didn't make it. I wasn't picked to do the play I wanted to do in school. Whatever the hell it is, that you can look at all these guys that they're now champions, that they went through the same travels. They went through the same failures early. But there's one thing that they all have consistently the same. They didn't give up. They didn't give up.
They kept showing
and
up.
They kept showing up, and they learned from their mistakes. They learned. They improved. They kept showing. They didn't give up. All right, that's it.
The other thing I'll say about that is if you're starting something new, like when my son was doing jiu-jitsu, I'm sorry to keep using that example, but that's the only one that's trying something new in my house. But I would say this, and you can attest to this, and I use Mike Tyson as an example because people view him as like one of the scariest, baddest fighters ever. At some point, Mike Tyson was the new guy in the gym. And you were there, and if he comes in and gets scared, and what was Bobby's name? The trainer that brought him into you, the correction officer.
What's his name?
Bobby, the fighter.
No, I know who he is. Obviously, he was up there. Brought him over to us.
Irish kid.
Yeah. Yeah, he had 14 pro fights. He was a national amateur champion, actually. Stewart. Yeah.
Bobby Stewart. Bobby Stewart, punches him in the body, drops him. If he could have easily been like, you know what, this is embarrassing and I don't want to do it. But if you're afraid to get embarrassed and learn something new, everyone has their first day at something new. So, like Teddy said, if you're struggling with something, you're nervous about something, forget it. Everyone started in the same place. You can't be great without taking the first step. And along those lines, the great Anthony Stitt, the boxing writer for Forbes magazine, a few months ago, he wrote an article about all the things that I've learned from you that have used that to apply to my own running. And listen, I don't pretend to be in the same category with all these great fighters, but I will say I've turned myself into a marathon champion and won multiple races. And a lot of that has to do with mental strength that I've gained from listening to the wisdom that Teddy's dropped on this podcast. And Anthony Stitt picked up on that and wrote a beautiful article in Forbes. So thanks to Anthony. But if anyone wants to see that, maybe Rob can put it in the show notes. It's a great article. And Anthony, all credit to Anthony. And of course to Teddy for sharing all these lessons. And if you listen and you take them to heart, like you can apply them to your life. This is, like he said at the beginning of this podcast, connecting the dots of life and using the lessons learned in fighting to apply it to your everyday life. It all ties together.
Yep. Listen, I'll finish with this. You always take me somewhere, Ken, because you're brilliant. And you mentioned as one of the original intimidators that people thought that was like Darth Vader. The original boogeyman was Mike Tyson. But there were original ones in my sport. And as much as Tyson was that guy, no doubt about it, he scared the hell out of people before they got in the ring. But the ones before that for me was Sonny Liston. Boy, oh boy, he was maybe the real original intimidator in that way. And he could fight and he could punch, just like Tyson. And then, of course, after Sonny Liston, I think they all took from Sonny a little bit, including this guy who became tremendous fighter, human being, everything. George Foreman. Those guys were, in many ways, kind of the blueprint in some ways for Tyson to kind of take from, as far as those intimidating type, characteristics to help him scare guys a little bit. Of course, you got to be able to fight. If you can't fight, it ain't gonna help you in the long run. It only help you early on with certain guys that you don't need it. But eventually you got to be able to fight as Tyson could. And then there was one other one, but he's not in the heavyweight division, as an original intimidator when he was young, when he was at his best. Take a guess who that would be, Ken. I got a feeling you might be able to guess. Because I want our audience to be with me now. As I'm saying this, I want the audience thinking right now, who's Teddy talking about? The original, not a heavyweight, the original intimidator that people could have, if they wanted to become an intimidator, and a great fighter, of course, they would have looked at him.
Oh, man, there's so many great ones. And when we start
when
getting
I tell you, you're going to go,
history, you lose me.
Hanson Stone.
Oh, Roberto Duran.
Roberto Duran when he was at his peak,
he was a scary, crazy guy too. Remember the things he would do to Sugar Ray Leonard?
He had those
crazy,
and before that with De Jesus, with Esteban De Jesus, with guys before, because De Jesus was the first guy to beat him. He had over 50 wins before he lost to somewhere around there. Before he lost the fight to De Jesus, then he knocked him out in a rematch. And De Jesus was a good fighter, but he had those coal eyes. They were like bottomless pits. It scared the hell out of people.
Who's like that?
Looked into those eyes, really did.
You know who's like that now? Terrence Crawford. I think Terrence Crawford is a mean, aggressive
That's a good
guy.
example, actually. He is. He's a very. He's the real deal, and he's a junkyard.
Regis Prograis pointed that out when he was.
He's a junkyard dog when it comes down to that quality of being just a mean son of a gun and a guy that ain't gonna give no quarter in that ring. And
Regis pointed that out. Regis Prograis, when he was on the show, he said, we were asking about Spence Crawford. What do you think? He's like, I could go either way. He goes, man, but Crawford is a mean bastard. That guy is intimidating guy. But in the nicest way. He's a nice guy. He's always been a gentleman to us. We've had him on the show if anyone's interested in looking for that. But
and we were talking about. I'll close with this. We were talking about. It's my third close of the day, by the way. We were talking about Jake Paul earlier. We've had him on our show, so go back and look at that interview if you want to know more about Jake Paul.
That's right. Jake Paul, Dana White. We've had a who's who. DC, Evander Holyfield, take your pick. We've had some killers on this show. Sometimes when I'm talking to people and they're like, oh, your show? Yeah, okay, blah, blah, blah. I go, who have you had on the show? I start rattling off the names, and even I'm like, holy crap, we've had some legends. Yeah. Man, we have had some incredible guests. But that was a pretty thorough breakdown for a slow
Stephen
week,
A.
Teddy.
Smith.
Thank you for
I had
doing
to throw
that.
him out there. I don't know.
Of course, Jim Gray.
He's my brother from another mother. Jim Gray with the great book that he's got out there, the greatest goats of all time, whatever.
Yeah, and let me say this, Stephen A. Smith's book, I listened to it on Audible. Oh, my God. And I'll tell you
what. It's got to be good.
I'll tell you, one thing I loved is him giving a shout out to our man Jamie Horowitz, who was an exec at ESPN, who was really helpful. And Stephen Smith said to him one time, hey, there's not really a lot of diversity on this show. Like a week later, Jamie was like, what do you need? Jamie was just the kind of guy. He's been such a good friend to me. Jamie Horowitz is a good person, used to run Fox Sports. He's now the head of Peyton Manning's Omaha production. He's just a good person. He can be a little Hollywood and sometimes doesn't respond to a text right away, because then I'll say to him, hey, F.O., don't give me this Hollywood crap and ignore my text. This is the third.
Did you say F.O.?
No.
Oh, F.O. I'm sorry.
Hey, F.O.
I know. I mean, in some area, right, Sam? Some areas, there's certain parts of the world, certain areas where they could be.
The letter F.O. I'm talking about the word F ending with O, like a description of someone. Hey, F.O.
Yeah, F.O.
Don't ignore my texts. I know you're Hollywood big time. I see him he's at the Super Bowl. He's down on the field. He's a big shot.
I'll go with
so
this one.
I got to remind
forget
him.
about that one from all over different quarters of the world. I'll go with the one from Staten Island, the one from Brooklyn anytime. Forget about it. Forget about it. Ken,
sometimes these Hollywood guys can get a little too big for their britches, and you got to remind him he's from the nice part of. He said, "Hey, we're
all
both
I
from
know
Boston."
is since I met you, your Rolodex has gotten larger. That's all I know.
100. Hey, someday when I win an Oscar or an Emmy, I'm gonna say, "Where's Teddy?" Without Teddy, I can't get arrested. No one knows me, and no one cares.
And then somebody's gonna whisper in your ear.
Teddy Alice is my man.
Somebody's gonna whisper in your ear. You didn't invite him. You only had you only got 5 tickets and
I'd say, hey, if I've got one ticket, if I say one ticket, I say to my wife, Shell, no offense, but without enough for all the kids, you're better off staying home with them. I gotta invite Teddy. Without Teddy, no one knows me.
Listen, this was a great show. I enjoyed it. I think we covered a lot of stuff. And
this was a fun one.
And I'm not going to finish by saying F.O. I'm just going to say, that I send nothing but good thoughts and love to all our fans out there. And I send good thoughts to even the ones that don't love us back the way that we love you. I want to be better. So
people who don't have love for others really have a problem with themselves, because when you're happy with yourself, it's hard to be upset with other people.
Good way to end it. And Ken, continue your great training. Take care of those hamstrings. All kidding aside, make sure you're taking care of that side of it. Make sure you're hydrating right. Make sure that you're getting enough potassium. Make sure you get a massage. Seriously, I mean, get a massage. Get the right kind, the right one. You know who to find, but get a massage.
Yep, I've been doing everything. I've got to get treatment tonight on the hamstring again. But with that, guys, thanks for being with us. We'll be back next week. Special episode. I'll be coming to you live from Tokyo. We'll have to adjust our schedules here because of the time difference. But super excited to discuss the Jake Paul fight next week. Really looking forward to that.
Yeah, I could just see it while you're over there. What are you going to be doing during your spare time? Watching Godzilla movies? I mean...
chilling. Taking it easy. Feet up.
Because that's the original Godzilla, where it started with from Japan, I believe. I mean,
Tokyo. That's right. When I get to these races like this, honestly, I'm just lazy. I just want to you know how it is. You have 4 kids. I'm busy all the time. The thought of being alone by myself in a nice hotel someday, I just want to sit there and watch TV and be lazy. And so I look to do that, try and decompress. I'll do a little sightseeing. I've got some friends to see over there. And I'm excited.
Ken's got friends everywhere, guys.
Thank you.
You can see that. All right, listen. Have a safe trip. All kidding aside.
All right. I'll see you guys next week from Tokyo. Thanks for being with us.